Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name's VinPF, and as you can see, I've got Mac from Kanpai Planet here. To celebrate, we've got two whiskies from Master of Malt, one boutique whiskey company that they kindly sent over to us. How you doing, Mac?
It's a real honour to be here. I can't believe this has finally happened.
I know.
Collaboration between Kanpai Planet and No Nonsense Whiskey. Before we go on, I do want to say, Vin, that you've been a real inspiration to me over the years, and good to see you going strong. Just celebrated your 8th birthday.
I know, it's crazy. 8 years of this nonsense, literally the biggest farce on YouTube, calling it no nonsense, but there we are.
Too humble, too nice, but what a way to celebrate.
What a way to celebrate.
Our first collaboration, and two 21-year-old whiskies that have been sent to us by our friends at Master of Malt.
Yeah. I think my favourite thing about getting Mac into the No Nonsense Whiskey Den was he was surprised how small it is in here. We're quite compact, but we're making it work, right?
It's fantastic. You've got an incredible collection of basically all open bottles, which is always fantastic to see. And we've just added to that by cracking these open.
Yes.
And letting them air for about, 20, 30 minutes or so now.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So we are ready to roll. The question for me that is always exciting is what exactly is inside these bottles. So, as Vin said, we've got these two 21-year-old whiskies, one bottled by Boutique and one bottled kind of by Boutique for Master of Malt. But they're both Master of Malt exclusives, actually, but kind of just slightly different branding on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a bit of a weird one for me and for Mac, really, because we tried to probe into the information, but even Master of Malt don't really know much about these whiskies. The key one is actually whether they can call them Japanese whiskey technically or not. They can, because when they were bought, the rules were such that you could do that, and now there's no information about the origin of these, so it could well contain some Scottish whiskey at some point. We have to assume probably does. But
yeah, I mean, I'm going to say through the thought experiments I've been running as to what exactly could be in this, that they're not going to be 100% Japanese whiskey.
Yeah.
They may even possibly be, I mean, dare I say it, they could be 0% Japanese whiskey. Unfortunately, there has been a history of Scotch and whiskey from elsewhere being sent to Japan and rebottled as Japanese. But for the purposes of this today, I think we're less concerned, right, about the provenance of the liquid and more concerned whether they taste good and they justify their 150 quid or so price point, right then?
100%. I think we better get into the first one. What do you reckon?
I'm looking forward to it. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do the boutique one first. Only purely for the fact that it's a slightly lower ABV when we're doing things side by side. But we will do a little bit of side by side, because one of the key bits of information you want to get from here, they've both been released at relatively the same sort of time. They're both Japanese blended whiskies and 21-year-old. So you could lean on the fact that these might be the same liquid, but as we'll go through the tasting, well, I don't think they are, but we'll see what you think when you get your nose into them.
Yeah, I mean, this one is 45.8%.
Yeah.
And we were told by Sam Simmons from Boutique that they were bought roughly a year apart.
Yes.
And just a spoiler alert, the next one is 48.4%. So that's quite a punchy gap for it to have been, you know what I mean, like this the same liquid, but kind of with a year here or there or whatever it ended up being. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one then we have is the Boutique, which has got the great artwork as usual. These are both 150 quid. So we're not talking about a small amount of money here, but what we'll be looking at now is obviously a 21-year-old Japanese whiskey. If this was a Yamazaki 21-year-old, I mean, how much would we be paying for a bottle?
I mean,
it isn't, but
that's something. I think it's pretty obvious that this is not coming from Suntory or Nikka.
Yeah,
because nobody in their right minds would take liquid from those two distilleries and then sell it for £150. So, yeah. All right. Anyway, Kanpai.
Cheers. Now, I mean, for me, on the nose, it's quite, so I will say at top, I do get a lot of sulphur on this one, but I'm not really sure where that's coming from, because usually that would be some kind of sherry influence. I mean, it might well be. All we know is marriage of casks on this. But when I delve past that, I'm getting some good, some nutmeg, some nuttiness, a little bit of citrus.
Yeah. It is quite tannic.
It's extremely tannic, yeah.
And it is quite astringent. And I got to say, I'm not warming to it. Ironically, of course, it is quite warming, actually, given that. But I'm not...
Yeah, I mean, taking my my whiskey tasting hat off, I'm talking about my personal preferences. This is a challenging dram for me because of the kind of the feints that are involved in here. But I always say on my videos, I'm quite sensitive to those feints, and there's a lot of people that really love them. Yeah, it is a fairly feinty whiskey.
On the nose, it's got, actually for me, a bit of that nail polish kind of note. So considering this is a marriage, it doesn't feel, you know, and given it's 21 years old,
Yeah.
it actually does have, for me, some of the notes I'd associate with a much younger whiskey, unfortunately. We're normally talking about young whiskey, you know, especially the stuff I review in Japan, 3 years old, 4 years old, actually having the characteristics of older whiskey. It's kind of a shame when it's the other way round.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know what I mean, right?
100%, yeah. Like if this didn't have a big dirty 21 on the label, like if this came with a 15 label, I wouldn't go, oh, that tastes like a 21. You know, not that I tend to know those things, but I mean, for me, it's fine. It's it's not what my personal palate desires. I don't think
there is a bit of, you know, there's a bit of sweetness there. You know, we've talked about the tannins. For me, it's not very integrated, right? And I got to say also, for me, it's not especially Moorish either, right? I'm not wanting to go back to it in an excited fashion.
Yeah, 100%. And it's I mean, yeah, it's definitely got, the palate for me is way better than the nose. I'm not getting so many sulphury elements to it. It's definitely a lot sweeter. Again, extremely tannic. This has got a lot of tobacco, and when I say tobacco, I'm talking about like wet Caribbean tobacco, not like dry cigarette tobacco.
Right.
So it's got a kind of dankness to it with the sweetness that I mean, I am enjoying the palate more than the nose.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've had to see this, but look at those legs on there. They are pretty incredible, to be fair. I'm enjoying that. 150 quid though. I mean, I talk about value a lot on the channel. Luckily, obviously, again, we got sent this, but yeah, I wouldn't be shouting from the rooftops about this one specifically. No, I think genuinely, I think if anyone was looking to pick this one up, they were into this sort of like the faintiness, they would 100% vibe this. And that's not to be, this will definitely get loved and shared within my collection. It won't just get like hidden away. I don't dislike it, but yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
Those of you who watch Kanpai Planet will know I've normally got a lot more to say about that, but I'm not feeling very inspired, actually. I think that's maybe that. It's not that it's terrible, it's just that it's quite ordinary. It surprised me that there's a 21-year-old age statement on this, and I personally wouldn't be paying 150 quid for this bottle.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But
I think that's fair.
It's not bad if you're watching this and you own a bottle. You know, knock yourselves out.
I mean, it's an extremely interesting whiskey for sure, and I think like I said, you know, if you're into those more fainty flavours, if you're into those kind of heavier, more challenging flavours, there's a lot to enjoy from here, and I think plenty of people out there would like it for sure. The next one then, this is a Master of Malt bottling, so obviously slightly different, but again, we have very little information. 48.4%, 150 quid. On the bottle here it says marriage. There's 315 bottles of this around, non-chill filtered, natural coloured, as all we like. The other one said 90 bottles on it, I think. So two different batches, but the colour is almost identical. I think even on a previous record we were talking about the slight differences in colour being one shade. This is even less than one shade. But yeah, I think the best thing to do would probably just to get straight into the nose, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Kanpai.
Cheers. Now, for me, any doubt about this being different, you know, this is definitely not the same liquid for me. I don't know about you, but
much less tannic.
Yeah.
And a lot sweeter on the nose as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, for me, it's not exactly, it's not sulphurous.
It's quite inviting.
Very inviting.
I'm going to go in on the palate, I think.
probably best.
What do you think? Well, I mean, notes-wise, a little bit of lemon, a little bit of citrus there.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's similar to the previous. So I think probably what we're getting here is the difference in the cask volume. You know, we're not talking about a lot of bottles here. So
yeah,
if there are multiple casks involved, shall we jump into the palate then?
Let's do it.
All right. Cheers.
Kanpai. Straight away, didn't even need to swallow it. And I guess part of it is because I've got to say, you know, we were a bit disappointed with the previous bottle.
Yeah.
So when you're hitting those, you know, the nose, we like the nose, goes straight in, and you're like, ooh, this is nice and pleasant. A lot sweeter immediately.
Yeah.
Than the previous bottle. I'm getting some nice, you know, kind of sort of steamed fruit notes, a bit of honey, a bit of maple syrup. So it is quite, you know, it's not like you get a coating mouthfeel, but there is a nice, you know, depth to it as well, which is great. And I immediately want to go for another drop. So, well, I want to drink. You carry on, you chat. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I mean, mostly mirrored. Yeah, it's for me. I'm getting a good wallop of brown sugar. There's definitely some tannic to it as well, but not much. This is way more kind of better marriage together.
Yeah, way more balanced.
Way more balanced.
I completely agree, by the way, on the brown sugar. Kokuto, for those, especially shochu fans, the Japanese brown sugar. I'm getting a bit of that as well. So all that sort of, you know, what we're saying, like the syrupy, honey, brown sugar. There is a kind of deep sweetness. You're spot on about the tannins, but balanced. A little bit of acidity. You're getting a bit of the mouth watering on the side, so there is a bit of acidity there.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, again, chalk and cheese between this one and the last one. The last one, every sip was, you know, I always say there's no such thing as bad whiskey because it wasn't bad. It was just challenging to my palate. This is not. You know, this is inviting. It's a little bit sweeter, which is perfect for me. Just this one excites me, whereas the other one I think is interesting, but yeah, not quite for me. But this, I could lose myself in this one. I think.
Nice, really nice. Bit of kind of cigar. You getting that?
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit.
Yeah, definitely those kind of those tobaccos. The extra ABVs doing some heavy lifting in this one as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and not much more really as well.
I think 48.4, but that's enough to you know make a difference.
The interesting thing about these single cask offerings, well, actually, I don't think this is single cask, but they don't always offer them at cask strength. So some of them are, some of them aren't. They don't actually say either way. So they could have brought it down to this. The boutique one, that's their standard ABV, 45.8. So they would have brought it down to that to match the rest of their core range, which you know we have over here unprofessionally, which is 45.8.
And this is an absolutely fantastic dram. We're getting off piece there. Sorry, Vin.
Yeah,
but I've got to say, the 35-year-old single grain, absolutely.
80 quid.
80 quid and devastatingly good. Yeah. So we know, I mean, Boutique, absolutely phenomenal company. You know, Sam and his team do phenomenal work delivering the most fantastic drams to people. Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, they'll be the first to tell you. I've dabbled in independent bottling, and especially when you are a small team, you can try your hardest to bottle things that you think everybody's going to like. But with the volumes that Boutique Whisky Company are putting out, new bottles every month. Same with Master of Malt, which is essentially the same sort of thing. They're the same sort of liquid. New whiskies every month.
Right.
It's absolutely impossible to please everybody every single time, and they will. I know for a fact that they'll absolutely love the differences between these two, because some other reviewer, some other buyer would get the exact opposite opinion of what we have today. You know, they'll say the first one was their favourite and the second one was far too sweet, far too high in ABV. I want something a little bit more understated and a little bit more fainty in it, because I know people that are just like, give me that burnt mash, give me that sulphur. So yeah, and I always say that on my videos. This is me, my opinion, and now obviously Mac's opinion. But that's not the be-all and end-all. Absolutely not. But I think for me, there's a clear winner of the two. I think probably for you as well. But
yeah, 100%. The finish, medium. You know, it's not insanely long, but it's still managing to kind of create that lovely, you know. In fact, the fact it's shorter just means, I've got to get another fix
Yeah.
I've got to get another fix quicker.
100%. I don't know about you, but I'm getting some cinnamon and clove on the back end.
Yeah.
You know, once the sweetness kind of dips off a little bit, a little bit of pepperiness.
The clove kind of a little bit connected to that bitterness. And then, the cinnamon. Bit of sort of apple pie. Right?
Yeah.
Bit of pastry.
Yeah, 100%.
Lovely. Would you, I mean, it's always difficult to tell, right? Just Japanese whiskey is essentially, on the whole, made in the Scottish tradition.
Yeah.
In a blind tasting, you'd have just thought this was a Scotch, right?
Oh, 100%, yeah. But I mean, I find that about most whiskies that are emulating the Scotch tradition, double distilling in traditional pot stills, very, very, very difficult. Unless you're in somewhere like Taiwan, where they're aging like in 3 years, what the equivalent would be like 15 years, they get very syrupy and thick very quickly. But I think, blind tasting does crazy things to your brain, but I 100% agree. You wouldn't be tasting this blind tasting going, there's something weird about this that makes me think it's not Scotch. You would just be like, this is X distillery.
And I think the reason for that, if I was a betting man, is that this is Scotch, I think. Or at least whiskey from outside Japan, which has been aged, possibly in some, casks that were owned by a Japanese distillery. And that's why you're feeling what you're feeling. But that doesn't mean, that the liquid isn't fantastic. So my issues, as you know, from being an avid follower of my channel, Vin, and watching every single video and then internalising all the knowledge, is that really my issue is not provenance, it's transparency.
Yeah.
So if we were able to, as I suspect, know that this was 21-year-old, let's call it Scotch, but it could be, I think maybe it could be some liquid from elsewhere as well, that's been housed in a cask from a former distillery and then, parceled back out, it's pretty delicious.
Absolutely.
Right? I've got no problem with that. I think my issues would be with the fact that the words here are blended Japanese whiskey, and that does imply, I think, to the average consumer that it was saccharified, fermented, distilled, matured and bottled in Japan.
I think that's why, so one of the things I like to do with these videos is get in touch with the gent that is Sam Simmons, and he's superb. If he can tell me something, he will. And one of the things he was very clear about with this one is that he really has no information, because they bought it in 2017, 2018, and it came with no information whatsoever. So these were before the rules were even changed. So I guess what their plan was to be able to call this Japanese whiskey, which they have done. So I will say like Master of Malt boutique whiskey company, usually incredibly transparent, but here it's clear that they just don't have the same information at all, and we'll never know that. But I think, in fairness, that reflects the price. One thing they are really good at is that they would have looked at the price of the cask that they bought and put this out as fair as they could make it, with obviously their own margins added in. And as Max said at the start of the show, if the provenance was there and they knew where this came from, this would be 400, 500, 600.
Oh, and even more. Some people have speculated that this could be from some of the lost distilleries before, because of Karawizawa, Hanyu or Kawasaki. But
probably not.
Yeah, then you would be looking at tenfold, or more, 20-fold increase in the price point. So I think given where the pricing is, I think it's fair to draw the conclusion that this is not actually whiskey that's been made in Japan. But nonetheless, this bottle
top drawer
is pretty good.
Now, so that brings us right round to the value. Obviously, we've both said that we probably wouldn't pay the 150 for the first one, or maybe even be slightly disappointed if we had paid it. Where do you feel about this one? Personally, if I'd have spent this and cracked it, I think I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, there's no doubt the liquid is great, and the liquid's enjoyable, and you can see I'm almost at the end here already. I've gone faster than you. 150. It's tough, right, these days, because we've been so completely renormalized, right, with the Diageo price increases, with the Pernod Ricard price increases. 150, 21-year-old liquid, pretty tasty.
Yeah. I think, I mean, even if we suppose it's Scotch, even let's say it was completely Scotch,
Yeah.
for a 21-year-old Scotch, that would be cheap.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
So-
now, right? So
actually, I think it all depends on you and your own personal enjoyment. You know, if you want it to be, this is going to sound silly now, but if you want it to be a Suntree, then it is. If you want it to be a Nicker, then it is. You know, I mean, you could just sit there at home and just kid yourself into be whatever it is. It tastes great at the end of the day, and it is a 21-year-old, and it is possibly somewhat Japanese related. And for me, I'm happy with that. That leaves us all then to say thanks again to Master of Malt for sending these over to us. Thanks for Mac for making the journey down to the old No Nonsense Whiskey Cave. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you've enjoyed it.
it's been fantastic. And until next time,
Cheers.
Kanpai.